to another episode of Police Beat, the show that takes you inside the Gainesville Police Department. I'm Officer Ben Tobias, the spokesman for GPD, and I'll be your host for today's show. Joining me as co-host is Sergeant Sharna Sen, a patrol supervisor.
We're happy that you decided to join us again this month. On this episode, we will be reminding you of some popular scams and frauds and what you can do to avoid being a victim. Later, we will show you what the Gainesville Police Department is doing to enhance our relationship with the minority youth in our community.
We begin this episode talking about some common frauds and scams that seem to plague us each year. There will always be criminals out there trying to take your money. Some criminals will do so by way of a burglary or a robbery, but some take a different approach. These folks will use different cons, scams, and frauds to trick you into giving them your hard-earned money. We're going to sit down with Detective Matt Geckel, a member of our Fraud and Financial Crimes Unit, to learn more about these scams and how you can recognize them and avoid becoming a victim.
You know, I like to tell people that if they really don't want to be a victim, they have to almost live in a bubble. They've got to completely eliminate any connection to any outside entity that their finances are attached to. The problem is you can't do that, so you just have to be really careful with your information. But you have to figure that anywhere that you've ever given your name or your information to, and that includes doctors' offices, credit card companies, banks, you know, if you've ever booked anything online, you've given your information to somebody. And all it takes is one bad person at one of those institutions, and you're at risk of being compromised. So it's almost, anymore, it's almost not a matter of true prevention as it is of just vigilance. You know, you have to be watching your credit report, you have to be watching your bank accounts, and you've got to be ready to catch it, because it's almost not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But the faster you can catch it, the more likely you are to not be harmed by it. I actually myself have been a victim of identity theft, and that's how we caught it, was our online bank. It's just something that we check on a daily basis, and because you'll see charges come through as pending, and if you can catch them then, you can catch them before anything bad happens, and that's what happened to us. But it was our online banking that was, enabled us to catch it. If you're with a bank or a credit union, and you have access to your account statements online, like I said, at a minimum, daily check your statements, make sure that there's nothing going through that you don't recognize, and just try to reconcile everything. And, the quicker you can catch it, the more likely you are to prevent yourself from being worse of a victim. A lot of times people will go through and they'll put through a dollar charge here or a dollar charge there just to test your account. If you can catch that quickly, you can get your account shut down or get at least that card shut down, and then they can't do any more harm to you while you work to fix the problem. The credit card skimming is not as big as a problem as it used to be, but it's still out there. There are still people with handheld machines. We still do see them occasionally pop up at gas stations. And then basically that would be somebody getting the credit card numbers. And there are methods that criminals have figured out, besides stealing somebody's wallet and anything, to actually physically get a hold of the credit card and use it in that manner. You definitely want to get us en route as quick as you can, especially if it's something that may have happened somewhat recently. And the reason is we're not going to prevent you or keep you from getting on the phone with your credit card company to cancel your accounts. But if you go to cancel your account and they're already using it or have used it just in the last few minutes somewhere, we're already en route or we're already there, and then you can get us en route to wherever it is we need to be, to where the bad guy is filling up his gas, in his car, or going on his shopping spree at Walmart or Target or wherever. We have had some scams in the past couple years where somebody will call pretending to be a family member and say that they're in jail in another country and they need money to get an attorney or to get bonded out. These guys, they do their homework. They learn everything they can about a person before they make this call, so you can talk to them and you might really think that this person is who they are, or with the person that they say they're with.
Hey, Mom. Yeah, is Grandma in jail in Aruba?
The thing is a lot, what you'll see a lot of times with these scams is people are going to try to rush you, and they're going to want you to go right now and go get the money and send it to them right away. And the reason that is one, they don't want you talking to other people and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing, or this is what's going on, because somebody's inevitably going to catch on to it. Or they don't want you thinking about it, because we get that call a lot. We get a lot of times where people will call and say, oh, I went and sent all this money to person X, and then I realized I was probably scammed. So if they'd taken an extra 15 to 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours or a day and sat down and thought about it, they might realize it's a scam beforehand. They won't be out the money. A lot of people have their information on Facebook, any of these social networking sites. If you don't lock down your page, and which is fine if you want your page to be open to the public, you want everybody to see, everything about you, that's fine and that's your business. But you have to realize that not only are your friends and your high school friends that might be looking for you out there seeing your information, but so are all these criminals who are doing nothing but scouring these social networking sites and scouring all these other websites to learn everything they can about a person. Typically when the magazine salesmen come into town, crimes go up. And it's not to say that every single person that's selling a magazine is a criminal or has criminal intent or is not legit, but it seems like a lot of them are. Yeah, so they're typically very aggressive, they're very pushy, they're gonna play on your emotions a little bit. They might tell you a story about the hard times that they've fallen on, whether they've just gotten out of prison or whether they're attending an underprivileged school or what the circumstances might be. A lot of times they're just trying to either get into your house or get a good look at your house or just get your information. You might give them a check and now they have your account information.
Hey folks, how you doing? I'm with Magazines for Love. I was just gonna see if you guys wanted some quality reading material. We got some wicked good prices. It's almost a steal.
And even though a majority of people actually won't fall for the scams, it doesn't matter because they're so prolific that they don't need everybody to fall for the scams. They only need 10% of the people to fall for the scam and they get their money. It's just take a few minutes and think about what's actually going on. And if you have doubts, contact somebody else that you trust and run it by them and say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what this person wants me to do. What do you think? And you can get a second or third opinion. And if they think it's fraudulent, then you probably need to take an extra step back and look at the situation as a whole and try to figure out if it's real or not. There's nothing that you or I can do to make this problem go away. And it's unfortunate. We do everything we can to catch the bad guys. But for every one bad guy they catch, there's another one out there.
GPD officers and detectives work very hard each day against crimes such as these, but we will unfortunately never be able to prevent all of these scams. We need you to stay vigilant and watch your money closely. After the break, we will take a look at the unique way the Gainesville Police Department is strengthening relationships between our officers and the youth of the community.
It's after midnight. Most likely you're asleep, safe in your home. Somebody is there, watching out for you. 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. The Gainesville Police Department is on patrol.
Report of suspect attempting to enter residence.
283, I'm en route.
The Gainesville Police Department. When you need us, we're there.
Burglaries and robberies have become serious concerns in our city. This crime is referred to as a crime of opportunity because most criminals look for the path of least resistance. Protect yourself. Don't become a target. Lock your doors and keep expensive items out of plain view.
For crime prevention information, go to GainesvillePD.org or call the Gainesville Police Department's Crime Prevention Office at 334-2479. Protect yourself. Don't become a target.
Over the past few years, police departments around the country and the communities they serve have seen tensions building, mainly between the police and minority youth. The Gainesville Police Department has also seen these tensions start to build within our own community. Instead of ignoring it, we chose to be proactive with the issue and deal with it head on. It's an issue that evokes emotion from everyone involved, and we believe the only way to make our community a better place is to study and address the issue. Earlier this year, we created the Youth and Community Services Bureau to ensure that our resources were used the most efficient way possible. We have moved some of our existing services and programs to this new bureau, and we also added new programs to enhance our relationships with our local youth. One of these programs is our Disproportionate Minority Contact Initiative, and it studies why our officers are contacting more minority youth and, more importantly, how we can address the issue. The Gainesville Police Department has partnered with the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building to help with part of this initiative. Each month, we hold police-youth dialogue sessions that brings 13 to 15 police officers and 13 to 15 at-risk youth together in a community conference setting. In the upcoming segments, we get an interesting look at some of the perceptions each group has of each other.
I don't define these kids as criminals under definition. They're criminals, but they're kids that have been exposed again to more of a trauma upbringing, you know, that finally show up with us. And that's what I would define these kids as. These kids that have been exposed to a more toxic and trauma environment, being raised, and by the time they reach our level, they're finally lashing out. They're getting physically big enough, they're not developing mentally, they're not going to school, and we're finally starting to see them, okay? So these kids early on are when they're having their biggest problems.
Well, nice to be here. Again, my name is Jeffrey Weisberg. I'm the founder and executive director of the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building. We've been here for about 3 years. In terms of you representing some law enforcement and other adults, of how do you specifically view young people? And so we're looking for an adjective that describes young people. It starts with an A and a B and so forth. So we're gonna do this process with the kids. When I leave here, I'm gonna go over there and do it with them. And their list usually is a lot less filtered, but it can just, again, help inform us of what's the lens that they're looking through. So what do you guys got for an A?
Attitude.
Attitude, able. It's a word that describes police that starts with an A.
Aggressive.
Aggressive. And B, what would one of those first words that come to your mind be? Brave. All right, belligerent. Yeah, C.
Cell phone.
What about a C? Hey, can you do me a favor and put that away? What's that? Courageous. Divisive. Disrespectful.
Difficult.
Is that what were you gonna say, egotistical? Okay.
Effective.
Effective.
Fun.
Fun. Okay.
Forceful.
Forceful.
Independent.
Independent.
Yeah.
Okay. Intelligent.
Can you put like / ignorant?
Yeah.
Because they are ignorant sometimes, like.
Okay. Jokesters.
Jerks.
Kind. Somebody say that? Okay. K.
Killers.
He for real.
Lazy. Okay. Loquacious. What does that mean? Talkative. Thank you.
Lurkers.
Lurkers.
They sometimes misguided.
Misguided. Yeah.
Mean. Motivators. Mean. I say motivators.
I'm gonna put both. Yeah. Motivators.
I don't think they mean and more negative.
Well,
because
she just categorized all cops in the same category.
Yeah.
That goes back to stereotype.
Yeah,
Like,
but-
all cops aren't like that.
Exactly. And all kids are not like what some people say. But it's important to just kind of get out on the table, how do we view adolescents and young people? And if this is your primary lens, that's I think pretty helpful, because some people's primary lens is that they're trouble, they're you know, not worth my time, or that, you know, that they're a nuisance in certain ways. Why are we here?
Show a new light on the police department. Because we think they are one way, but after this, you're going to see, like, they are totally different.
Nice.
They're not.
Okay. When we see law enforcement kind of come from a certain perspective, and it might be a little bit rigid in certain ways in terms of how law enforcement might see young people, and young people certainly have kind of a narrow view of cops, and to see in the course of these 4 or 5 hours together that begin to shift, and then out in the community for it to shift even more is very heartening.
Some of the previous training sessions, they've all been great. I'll be honest with you. We had one that didn't go well, but I can tell you, the officers that really were kind of the bullies in the sessions and that didn't really come away with anything, having followed up on some of the reports and curfew checks, they did change. It did change them. I looked at some of the relationships they developed from the kids that they were here, and out of that training session that we had, those relationships did change, and the officers put that in the report. You know, hey, I ran into so-and-so, he was my partner at Police Youth, and I went ahead and sent him home, very polite, nice, and this is like one of the worst kids we've ever had, so.
When the police officers come in here, and we're gonna spend time together, and then we're gonna break for dinner, and you're gonna have the opportunity to have one cop, one kid have an interview process over supper.
As you can see so far, these groups are open and honest about how they perceive the other group. Some of the perceptions are good and others are shocking. We believe that this first step is important in understanding the behavior of both officers and youth. After the break, we put everyone in the same room and see how some of these perceptions may be reinforced or even changed. Stay with us to see what happens next.
Why don't you come with me?
Yo, what are you doing?
Nothing, man. Just having a little fun.
Come on, man, she's drunk.
We're just a little bit buzzed, that's all.
She's more than just a little buzzed, dude. Look, she can't even stand up.
It's not a big deal.
Come on, let's just get her out of here. You'll thank me later.
Dude, come on.
So, you went out with a friend last night. Did you have fun? Do you remember? Did you have one drink too many? Or maybe two? Do you know? Did you think you were cool? Do you remember what happened? Who brought you home? What's being posted online today? Binge drinking. You're smarter than that. This message is brought to you by HIT and its sponsors.
Guys, he's running back. He's running back.
Welcome back to Police Beat. Before the break, we saw a group of officers and a separate group of youth discuss and write down some of the perceptions of the other group. In the next segment, we bring both groups together to discuss why those perceptions exist and how to understand each other even better. Let's see what happens next.
Welcome, guys. So glad you're here. Okay, the wind blows. So the person in the middle is going to say the wind blows, and I'm going to say something that's true about me. And if it's true about you, you have to find a different seat. And you cannot just switch with your neighbor. You have to go somewhere else. And then the last person standing gets to do it. Gets to be up here and say the wind blows and tell them something about themselves. Okay? You guys understand? You'll see. You'll see. All right, so the wind blows if you have ever left the state of Florida. If it's true, you have to get up and get a different seat. Yeah.
The wind blows if you were born not in the state of Florida, from somewhere else.
You can also take it a little deeper, you know, in terms of some life experience.
All right. The wind blows if you've ever played basketball.
That's pretty
Okay, the wind blows if you've ever been in a physical fight. There we go.
The wind blows if a police officer or law enforcement officer has ever done something positive for you and your family.
The wind blows if you've ever had negative interaction with police officers.
Maybe it's just. The wind blows is like you boom.
Great job. All right, thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause. So I'm curious, what's your first hit of hearing the list? You know, for the young people, how did it feel to hear these words associated with you? Any young people want to speak?
I feel like we think about each other the same way. Just like we're different people. Like we got a lot of similarities as the way they see us and the way we look at them.
Y'all don't like us. Clearly.
Because there's a lot of me.
I feel like you guys feel like, I don't know, I guess you deal with more of the bad, intolerant kids, so that's all you see. So like once you see a girl like me that is really good and respectful, it's kind of like it takes you back a little bit. So I feel like the stuff that y'all wrote was more for the negative kids.
And we were thinking like both sides. Like we were thinking like me, I was thinking more like y'all were. I was thinking like the bad side, and they were thinking of the good side.
Yeah.
I am the stereotype, y'all say, that usually don't like y'all. But like more, I meet now, since I met some of y'all are pretty nice, and some of y'all pretty funny, like Ariel. But yeah, like y'all got a lot of mean words in there, and I was like, oh wow. Oh.
Look, can I say something real quick? Some of the words that you read them out of context. Like for example, attitude and advanced. That doesn't mean you have an advanced attitude. It means that some have attitude, some of them are very gifted and advanced.
The ones that really kind of like throw me a curveball is the ones, especially the one where it says killer. I mean, can I ask for you guys to expound on that some?
Mike Brown. She's about Mike Brown.
Yeah, I think Lisa.
I was going to say the wrong thing. It's pretty much how the media is portraying us. And I was actually going to say that I was surprised at how many positive things were on there. So I thought it was going to be all negative, honestly.
One thing that you have to understand with law enforcement is we deal with people at bad times in their lives. So it's not necessarily that it's a bad person we're dealing with, but it's a bad time. Something's gone wrong.
You know, when you get sent to a 30-person fight, okay, and all you have on the screen is there's 30 people rocking, bottling, and beating each other in the street. That's all you know coming into something. And so right off the bat, at least for me, I automatically start escalating my, it's like I'm going into attack mode. And so then when you get to these scenes, you may be a little less, I may be a little less than friendly to some of you guys. It's just because we have to control it. We have to, that's what we're here for. And then once we control it, and then I have to start de-escalating myself, and then, then I go into the mode of, hey man, I'm just doing my job. It was nothing personal, but I have to come in here with this level of, I can't even explain it, but it's like a level of force. And so people don't always understand. Like, you're nasty, you're this, you're mean. And it's really not who I am. And once I get people one-on-one, I said, look, I was just doing my job. Now I can talk to you, and I don't have to be that way. I just have to come in, control it, de-escalate it, and now we have to move forward.
When you come to the scene like that gets people, we notice that, like, because when I get stopped, the first thing the backup police do, they come up, stand like this, like, yeah, like, real cocky, like what you, it's like a lot of things that y'all do seem unnecessary, not knowing why y'all do it, but it seems like it put fire, it adds fuel to the fire a lot of the times, like you said in that situation.
How do you feel we should act? Tell us.
I mean, honestly, you can't, just like you say, you're right, but y'all gotta control the situation, but majority of the time, it's just people looking. And the people that's looking be the ones that the police come to. The people that was fighting and all that, they usually be gone by the time y'all come, majority of the time. But like yesterday, I seen it wasn't no violence or nothing in the neighborhood, but Miss Marquita and somebody else came out there. They ain't had no problem with nobody. Ain't nobody said nothing to them. They was walking around, hey, how you doing? This, that, and the other. Communicating, walking, ain't bothering nobody, minding their own business. Some officers see 3-4 dudes standing over, black t-shirts. They'll go over, stand by them, and just, hey, how you doing? And just start messing with them, and then it feel like we feel like you're harassing us, and that's when everybody else started taking them.
I think that we have to change our mind and look at police officers in a different eye, be in their shoes for once. I mean, they have personal lives too. They have to go home and they have to be out all night, for a job. So just stepping in their shoes and taking a look at how they view us and how we view them, kind of switch roles and see why do they do what they do. We can't always go at them like, oh, you just trying to boss me around. I mean, you have to just think about this stuff. It's like a teacher and a student. A teacher has 6 classes with 30 plus kids. At the end of the day, they're tired as well, so.
As young people, we do need to become more open-minded about a situation, because I know I have friends, like, we could be sitting outside just talking, having a conversation. If the police come, automatically the conversation, we having a good, fun conversation, they automatically just, you know, be like, man, bump them. And like the police officer didn't say nothing to us, so it's kind of like some young people just don't want to have nothing to do with a police officer because of what is labeled on them or whatnot. And it's kind of like you can't just stick a label on somebody if you don't really know them. So they really have to become more open and just, you know, chill, like, you know, grow up, basically. Just, yeah.
Question for you. So you've experienced that before, right? So what have you talked to your friends about that? About
yeah,
their attitudes about that?
I talk to my friends personally, people that I hang with. I'm not from Gainesville, but I'm from St. Pete or whatnot. But you know, I've overcome an anger issue, and like I was never like a bad kid or whatnot. So like I never had encounters with the police or whatnot. But like just hearing the stuff that my friends would say, I would never agree with, because it's kind of like the stuff that, you know, people say about police officers. Like, dang, I always had this phrase: if somebody was shooting up your house, who are you gonna call? Like, I've always thought like that. I'm like, bro, you gonna call the police if you're getting beat up? Who you gonna call? You know, it's like, you're not gonna call your mama and your mama knowing your mama at work. You gonna call the police. It's kind of like, oh, I'm gonna call the police if you can't beat somebody. So it's kind of like I try to throw a little stuff in and help them open their minds up a little bit.
What kind of reception did you get from that?
I mean, they listen and whatnot. I mean, because what can they say? Like, can't really get too offended. It's coming from somebody who truly loves them or whatnot. But like, I don't know if it's actually changed. Haven't been back home in a while.
Touch on what they were talking about and just say that was pretty mature about, you know, how y'all answered that for your age. Because to be honest with you, most adults out there on the street don't understand what we do. And I don't mean young. Yeah, I know it's hard for young people. Y'all still have some growing up to do, things to learn, life experiences to make, to learn things. But most adults don't even understand our job.
Because what we're going for here is how do we build some greater understanding and connection and communication through each other, with each other. Because in many ways, young people and adults in general, let alone police officers, it's kind of like oil and water in a way, you know? In some respects, they just don't mix that easily. But what I believe is that with some effort and intention, we can mix in a really good way.
The Gainesville Police Department chooses to tackle this issue proactively. For a police department to be effective, we must have the public's trust, and we have to understand the community we serve and protect. We think that these sessions are a great step in the right direction to making Gainesville one of the best places in the world to live and work.
Well, that wraps up this month on Police Beat. Make sure to follow GPD on Facebook or Twitter, or connect with us at GainesvillePD.org, where you can make suggestions on what you'd like to see featured on a future episode.
We love taking your suggestions and putting them on air, so please let us know what parts of GPD you want to see.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next month for another episode of Police Beat.
What world am I saying thanks, Ben?
It's not in the script.
You looked too late.
I did look too late.
And you threw me off.
They'll do that.
Burglaries and robberies have become serious concerns in our city. This crime is referred to as a crime of opportunity because most criminals look for the path of least resistance. Protect yourself. Don't become a target. Lock your doors and keep expensive items out of plain view.
For crime prevention information, go to GainesvillePD.org or call the Gainesville Police Department's Crime Prevention Office at 334-2479. Protect yourself. Don't become a target.